Welcome to The Explainer. I am so absolutely thrilled to have you with us today as we unpack what has to be one of the most talked about Champions League semifinal first legs we've seen in a really long time. Now, if you just glanced at the box score, you'd see Atletico Madrid and Arsenal played out a 1-1 draw at the Metropolitano. You'd probably think, okay, standard, balanced first leg, right? Well, that scoreline doesn't tell even half the story. Not even close. This was a match entirely consumed by high-stakes refereeing decisions, pitch-side monitors, and some serious post-match fury.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta was absolutely incensed after the final whistle. I mean, he told reporters he was incredibly fuming, that a late penalty awarded to his team was suddenly taken away. He argued that the intervention by the video assistant referee fundamentally changed the entire course of the game. And his main point? At the absolute highest level of European football, an overturn like that simply can't happen.
So, it begs the ultimate question for us today. Were Arsenal actually right to be fuming? Or were the match officials, despite this massive wave of backlash, completely correct according to the strict letter of UEFA law? We're going to strip away all the emotion here, look strictly at the rules, and find out exactly what happened.
To make sense of all this, here's our agenda. First, a tale of 3 penalties. Second, the handball rule explained. Third, why did VAR intervene? Fourth, reactions to the chaos. And finally, stakes for the second leg. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. A tale of 3 penalties. The match stats.
To really grasp the controversy, we first need to set the scene, because the context of this match is just fascinating. Literally 24 hours prior, the footballing world was treated to an absolute goal fest in France, where PSG edged Bayern Munich 5-4 in this spectacular thriller. But this matchup in Spain, a completely harsh contrast. It was a gritty, incredibly tense, almost suffocating encounter where the attacking play really struggled to flow. Instead, the entire game ended up being defined by penalty decisions.
Here is exactly how that chaos unfolded chronologically. In the 44th minute, so right before halftime, Arsenal's Victor Gyökeres was brought down by a pretty slight bump from David Honko. Penalty given, Gyökeres scores 1-0 Arsenal. Then, fast forward to the 56th minute, Atletico's Julian Alvarez converts a penalty to equalize after a highly debated handball on Ben White. And then comes the late-game explosion. Eberechi Eze is brought down by Honko. The referee points straight to the spot, but then VAR steps in, sends the referee over to the monitor, and the penalty is shockingly overturned. Section 2. The handball rule explained. Deciphering the call.
So, the crucial point here is understanding exactly why that 56th-minute equalizer was awarded to Atletico Madrid in the first place. Let's objectively break down Ben White's handball, because it caused massive confusion, especially among English fans. You see, the confusion stems from the fact that the ball deflected off White's own body before hitting his arm. And many fans have been conditioned to believe that a deflection automatically negates a handball. But actually, that is simply not true under UEFA's strict criteria. What European referees are looking for is a clear change of trajectory. And even more importantly, if a player's arm is moving away from their body, making themselves bigger, that movement completely trumps the small deflection.
Let's contrast this real quick. In the Premier League, the handball rules are interpreted much more loosely. In England, the fact that the ball deflected off White's shin first might well have caused the VAR to just stay out of it entirely. But under UEFA's standard, White's arm started from a long way out and actually moved in to make contact with the ball. By European definitions, the movement of the arm was very clear. So what we have here is a definite, totally by-the-book spot kick in Europe, even if it's considered borderline back in the Premier League.
Section 3. Why did VAR intervene? The overturned decision.
And that brings us to the late-game incident that left Arsenal's camp absolutely furious. Eberechi Eze is caught by Honko, referee Danny Micheli gives the penalty, but VAR tells him to review it, and he ends up overturning his own call. The massive issue for everyone here is consistency. Think back to just last month. Arsenal's Noni Madueke was awarded a late penalty against Bayer Leverkusen under almost identical circumstances. The contact was incredibly slight, but in that instance, a senior figure in UEFA's refereeing body explained that because there was some contact, it wasn't a clear and obvious error, meaning the VAR had nowhere to go and the on-field decision simply had to stand. Yet fast forward to Wednesday night, Eze is caught by Honko. It's soft, absolutely. But based on UEFA's own logic from that Madueke incident, there was no clear and obvious error here either, and the on-field decision should have remained. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer frustration Arsenal felt. Mikel Arteta pointed out that referee Danny Micheli stood at the pitch-side monitor and watched the replay 13 separate times. 13 times! As Arteta argued, and it's a fair point, If a referee has to watch an incident 13 times to figure out if he made a mistake, how on earth can it possibly be classified as a clear and obvious error? It completely contradicts the entire premise of how VAR is actually supposed to operate.
Section 4. Reactions to the chaos. Pundits weigh in.
Naturally, the pundits watching the game back in England were left just utterly baffled by these contrasting refereeing styles. Former Liverpool captain Steven Gerrard actually floated a pretty fascinating theory. He suggested that the officials were subconsciously influenced by the events of the previous night. Remember during that wild PSG-Bayern game? A very similar handball penalty was given against Alphonso Davies. Gerrard believes the officials in Madrid saw that, and when the Ben White incident happened, they felt this pressure to follow suit and maintain consistency with Tuesday's crew, kind of ignoring the nuance of the specific play right in front of them.
Ex-Liverpool defender Stephen Warnock completely echoed this sentiment, firmly highlighting the massive cultural gap between English and European refereeing. He stated plainly that the Ben White handball simply does not get given in the Premier League. He called it a bizarre decision. But crucially, he noted that he wasn't exactly shocked to see it awarded in the Champions League, where the standard is just so rigidly and unapologetically enforced.
So, to summarize the punditry consensus, Match of the Day's Nedimo Noah pointed out that realistically, all three penalty incidents in this match, Gyökeres, Alvarez and Eze, they were all quite soft, but the real issue is the unpredictable nature of the VAR process itself. The unified takeaway is that while the on-field calls were debatable, the VAR intervention on Eze really lacked consistency, perfectly highlighting how English domestic expectations continually, and I mean continually, clash with strict UEFA standards.
Section 5. Stakes for the second leg, returning to London.
As fascinating as the refereeing debate is, we do have to pivot back to the actual footballing stakes. Because guys, this tie is far from over as it heads back to the Emirates Stadium in North London. Atletico midfielder Koch summed it up perfectly after the match. He acknowledged the controversial nature of the opening penalty against them, but focused on the fact that they recovered and they fought back. His words, "It will all be decided in the second leg," really ground us in the reality that despite all the noise, all the complaints, and the monitor reviews, this tie is perfectly balanced at 1-1.
Now, what's really interesting here is the immense historical weight hanging over both of these clubs. Just look at these droughts. Arsenal has not appeared in the Champions League final since 2006 when they lost to Barcelona. And Atletico Madrid, they haven't been back to the final since 2016 when they suffered that heartbreaking loss to city rivals Real Madrid. Both of these massive, historic institutions are absolutely desperate to end their long absences from European football's biggest stage, and they are now just 90 minutes away from doing exactly that.
Which brings us to our final thought. With the tie locked at 1-1 and tensions running higher than ever following all that refereeing drama in Madrid, all eyes turn to the Emirates. Who is going to harness this frustration? Who will finally break their Champions League final drought in London? It is going to be an absolutely unmissable second leg. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the source material today. I hope this explainer brought you total clarity on all the chaos. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.